the meeting to order of the Whitman Middle School Building Committee at 4:30. If you could please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. In light of the recent events in Tennessee, I'm going to just ask everyone if we could just have a moment of silence as to the occurrences there and those that did lose their lives. Thank you. First on the agenda is Owner's Project Manager Monthly Report. Mr. Bates.
So we'll start off the OPM report with the budget update. The budget update that I have for committee this evening is, you'll recall several meetings ago.
If we could actually even hold the microphone,
Sure.
so that way there it'll be aimed right at the phone speaker.
So several meetings ago, I had told the committee that we need to issue a budget revision request to transfer $48,000 from our contingency line item in the feasibility budget into the environmental and site line item, so that we to make us whole, so to speak. That was submitted months ago and has finally been approved by the MSBA's auditing department and executed. The district now has the signed copy. What that means is that the district can continue to submit reimbursements in the propane system under that environmental site line item. So that's the financial update I wanted to communicate to the committee. Any questions on that?
Yeah, quick question. Is that the reason why some of the submissions were not getting
They
reimbursed?
bounced back. That's exactly right. Yeah, it was over the basis until they had completed their auditing process.
Okay. So those will now get reimbursed, or will we not going to get reimbursed for those?
No, you can now.
Okay. All three, there were three of them, I think. Is all three of them fall into that?
Right. Yeah.
Thank you.
Do we need to move the money from one account? Do we need a motion, or?
No motion required. It's already approved for submission months ago. So next on the agenda is we wanted to talk about the schedule for the town meeting and election date. Colliers doesn't have anything to provide update-wise, so I wanted to bring it to the committee to discuss if there's anything that you could, any new information.
The Board of Selectmen, I believe, are meeting next week, and I believe it's going to be a topic that they're going to revisit. They did meet last week and obtained additional information from the town clerk, and hopefully they'll be making a decision on the 4th of April when they meet.
The 11th.
Is it the 11th?
Yeah, the 11th of April.
I'm sorry, the 11th of April.
What's that date?
April 11th, Chris.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any
Chair.
further discussion on that? Or
Yep.
Mr. Lamartina.
What I would say after speaking to the clerk and through the board, I would say there's probably two options right now. Continue with the March primary date, or I believe the other option, the town administrator was right after the first of the year would be the other date, holding it as a single election after the holidays.
Sometime in January.
Sometime in January. So those would be the tentative two dates right now. So it'll probably be a special town meeting in the first couple weeks of January with the vote to follow after, or continue with the March primary. But we will take a vote on the 11th and get an exact date then.
And you had conversation with MSBA. There are still slots for the December meeting.
As of now, yes, that's good.
Okay, and the time frame from the December meeting, how many days do we have for the?
Once the board approves the project scope and budget agreement with it, you would have a 120-day window to certify funding. I think that gets us through April.
Okay.
the March date, as long as both the election and ballot are completed by the beginning of April. You will have done it within the window.
And I hate to put folks on the spot, and I know you can't speak to it. Is there still the option to have it in October, November?
My takeaway from the meeting is I don't believe the support was there for it to have it prior to the holidays.
I think that was a concern. I mean, I can't speak for the whole board,
Sure.
but I think that was a concern. They were thinking after the holidays, if we had to do a single election, then January, otherwise stay with the March with the double ballot.
I'm going to open this up for the consensus of the committee. That do you feel we're better off to now request a December date so that while there is the availability hopefully still with MSBA that we can lock into that, or do we want to wait another few weeks? So that December date would give us, as you said, through April. So, and that'd be almost the end of April, wouldn't it? Close. Any consensus, any questions, any ideas?
I would just say the sooner that the vote can be held, the less the potential increase in the cost of the project will be. Every month has a certain percent increase associated with it that we delay.
Fred, could I have whoever just spoke with that, please?
Go right ahead, Mr. Scriven.
No, I just, whoever just spoke, I have to do that.
Oh.
Oh, it's Kathleen Otina, Chris, and I said that I would favor an earlier date, that scheduling something in December makes sense because the longer the vote is delayed, the more the increased cost, potential increased cost builds up, as John Galvin explained at the last meeting.
So, Fred,
Yes, Brendan.
I agree with what you, but I think your point was, should we log into December with the MSBA, because it sounds like October, November are out of the,
Correct.
which is fine with me. Yeah, I think that'd be a smart move. Yeah, but yes, I also agree earlier, January would be better if possible.
And I'm in favor for as early as we
Yeah,
can do it.
yeah.
Heck, I'd like to see it in the summertime, but I know they could never get it done by then.
But yeah, if Mr. Lamartinez thinks that that's not going to happen, we might as well sign on.
Well,
You know.
okay, Mr. Lamartine only speaks for himself, but I think in
Sure.
being at that meeting and seeing the consensus of the committee, while they never took anything formally,
Yeah.
I think it would be prudent for us to lock in December, not lose a time slot, because they only meet every other month, and then all of a sudden they're saying, okay, well, you're in for February, and now you pushed that far out. I would think it'd be prudent for us to sort of bring it back in and at least try and lock it in. I would entertain a motion that we instruct our owner's project manager to request from MSBA to be put on the meeting docket for December as opposed to October that they currently have us slated as.
I'll make that motion, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. I have a motion by Kathleen Otina. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Lamatina. Is there any further discussion?
Right.
Mr. Galvin?
Yeah, I think I outlined a pretty good timeline to the Board of Selectmen at their meeting the other night, that it could easily be done town meeting at the end of October and a vote November 4th. Historically, now granted their presidential elections or state elections, November ballots have always been over 50%. The last three we've had, they've been over 50%. Now granted, it's only going to be this one item, possibly another, but I don't see why we're pushing this off. I mean, if we're looking for the amount of voters, November elections have historically been over 50%, so I don't get it.
Any other? Ms. Stafford?
Yeah, I agree with John completely, and so I have a little trouble pushing off till December because my thoughts are with John's that it can be done, and but if it's not gonna happen, I guess we have to go with the December, but I'm not happy about it.
Is there any issue with waiting till our next meeting to wait till their vote? You know, or will we lose our spot? Is that
Could lose our spot.
We could,
We're gonna have the same question.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and Mr. Bates, so potentially,
I haven't been given a hard deadline on when we have to notify. Just seems logical that the sooner the better, that the MSBA knows what our plans are. So,
any other questions? The way I look at it is, it's us rolling the dice. You know, if we roll the dice to wait for our next meeting, or wait for the Board of Selectmen to determine, you know, if that's an option, and it's not, we risk losing that December. I don't know what that risk is, if it's 10%, 20%, 50/50, I have no idea. But I think that, you know, it's just something we should be considering right now, and we can lock in, take the safe road. I know it's been spoken, and I can agree that we don't want to do it over a holiday season. So that sort of takes out, you know, that November, December, when you're talking the second half of November.
But we're
And
not
the
talking
December
the second
time.
half of November.
I'm sorry?
We're not talking the second half of November. We're talking November 4th, which would be before a presidential election if there was one this year, because that would have been on the 7th. And you know, we're not talking the holidays here. Again, I'm sorry to interrupt. I don't get it.
That's okay.
December is going to be, if we do it in January, it's going to be right after the holidays, and everybody's going to be, you know, all holiday poor and not wanting to spend any money.
yeah.
You know, I mean, I think that's, if we're not going to do November, then I think we ought to wait till March.
In the time frame we're talking about to guarantee us a slot by doing it sooner rather than later, you know, is the December meeting.
Yeah.
You know, it's rolling the dice. We are not the authority that would be calling for the election. We're not the authority that would be calling for the special town meeting. That is up to our Board of Selectmen. Sitting in the room, and you were sitting there as well, Mr. Galvin, I did not really see the appetite for them to call for those meetings in that type of a fashion. That's
don't know
just
how
my personal interpretation.
I don't know how it would have went. Certainly wouldn't be unanimous, let me put it that way.
Mr. Lamartina.
Yeah, I would say it may not be unanimous, but if I had to,
Can you guys pass the mic, Chris? It's on the hard time.
Sure.
You're loud.
I get a big mouth, huh?
You're loud.
if I had to give an opinion on how we were going to do it, it certainly would be either the January or the March date. So if you were asking my opinion what this committee should do now, it would be to request the December date. Again, I'm only one person, but that's how I read the meeting.
Thank you. Any?
Fred,
Yes.
I couldn't hear, was there a definitive answer as to, you know, what would happen if we waited until we met again? After the
We could lose the December meeting. He asked if we waited a month. We would
If we wait, we do have the possibility, if the December docket gets full for MSBA, then they would schedule us at the next meeting, which would be in February. So we would lose an extra 2 months, so to speak. I don't know if we know what the date in February, but I think they're generally toward the end of the month. So you'd be looking at the end of February before we could even, you know, have the special and then the election after that. Whereas if we do December, that gives us a 120-day window, puts us out through the middle to the end of April. And once we have that window, the Board of Selectmen can schedule the meeting as early as January with a subsequent ballot vote, or if they wanted to persist in the March ballot at the presidential primary, they could do so as well. So,
Yeah, I'd say, while we're asking for individual opinions, maybe we could ask John what the probability is that we might use that.
Yep, I'll grab it. I need my steps today. Good. Here you go. I'm working on a second mic right now.
The question, oh jeez, that's loud. The question was the probability of us losing the spot, whether if we were to wait another month to make the decision. I don't have the number to give you.
So I don't expect a number, but.
Yeah, and 50-50, sorry, what was that?
I wasn't looking for a number, I was just looking for your best guess. High probability, low probability, like, just tonight.
Say hi, say hi.
I don't,
50-50.
when it comes to schedule, and as an OPM, I just don't like to mess around with the schedule. I would advise that we solidify what we're doing if we can this meeting. I think we don't want to play around. Play around might not be the way to put it, but I think that it's good if they know what our intentions are. So I would hate to see, for whatever reason, us lose that spot for that December board meeting, and then we'd have to figure it out from there. That's my thinking.
I think I have a quick question.
Brandon?
John, maybe you would know this, but is there an earlier meeting we could get on? Like, is there a November meeting, for example? Or yeah.
Originally, we were tracking the October board meeting.
Okay.
Right.
Which would put us out through what? 120 days, right?
Right.
So that would encompass November and January. So we're good for those 2 days, right? And if we waited a month, could we then get to the February and still get March if that was the case? So we still could wait, technically. You guys see what I'm saying?
Well, the October meeting
The October meeting, you'd run out,
would not get us,
January 26th would be the last time, that would be the 120 days.
So we're on the October meeting right now, let's say. Right, thank you. So that covers us for November and January, correct?
Correct.
So let's say we meet again in a month after these guys vote, and if we need to push it to March, then we'll just tell John, put us on the February meeting.
there is no February meeting.
I thought he said there was.
Oh wait, I'm sorry, February, yeah, there's December, then it's February.
Right? Doesn't that solve our issue?
Well, the problem being, the February meeting is the end of February, so now you're not doing the special, etc.
No, I'm talking MSBA.
Yeah, but you have to do MSBA.
The clock starts ticking the date of the board meeting. If you're going in front of the board in February, you can't do anything until that day.
Okay.
Then you have to lay the plans for your town meeting and election, which would presumably be after that, maybe as many as a month or two after that. You would be setting the clock back significantly if you would go that route.
Okay.
So, and this may cure this whole thing. So the statement you just made, so we can't do anything until MSBA meets.
They have to approve this project scope.
So the
budget.
Board of Selectmen can't call for a special in town meeting, and they can't call for a ballot vote
Sure they can.
until after. That's,
You can, because you can cancel it.
Right.
Yeah, you can do that. That's
Okay.
that's up to the town whether they want to. Do
right,
that.
okay. 'Cause-
So if you're saying if you want to wait, if you want to work the schedule around the February board meeting and have your meeting and election scheduled for just after that.
It would be in March, it would be at the presidential.
Because it's what, 14 days you have to post a warrant?
35.
No, 35 for the ballot vote. But how many days for posting the warrant?
14 for a special, 7 for an annual.
Okay. So the question is, how early could you post the special? Can you post the special before MSBA rubber stamps? I mean, we're expecting a rubber stamp.
I think I prefer to wait and do the process in the correct order and MSBA, and then have the special, and then have the ballot.
Oh, we would have to do that.
Okay, so that puts us to the December meeting, because you're not going to,
Yeah, we would have to do that, but what we're saying is you could schedule them before the board meets. You wouldn't have them until after the
Right.
board meets, that's what we're saying. But you can always schedule them ahead of time, because then you can just cancel. And that's what John is saying. But, I mean, if we're not gonna see the October, November, then the easiest route would be the December, I would say. Because then I would prefer the January if we have to. I know it'll be tough, as John said, but I'm really not happy with it either way.
The more this conversation unfolds, the more I'm thinking that we wait until the board makes a decision on, what was it, the 11th, the 14th?
The 11th.
And when we reconvene as a committee, we'll make the final call. And I think that, I'm guessing we'll be okay.
can you ask them to pencil us in just in case?
I'm certainly going to keep them up to date on what's going on. But if we have a firm deadline as to when we're going to make the decision, I think that goes a long way.
All right, so I do have a motion and a second. I would entertain if anyone wanted to withdraw the motion.
I withdraw my motion.
Okay, well, and the second's withdrawn.
I did not second.
Oh, I'm sorry, Ms. Lamartine.
Withdrawn.
Okay, so, there we are.
Can I ask a quick question? Are we scheduled for the October MSBA meeting?
Yes,
Okay.
we have always been scheduled for that meeting.
Okay.
All right, MSBA Facilities Assessment Subcommittee update.
Yeah, this is a quick update, a milestone that we wanted to report to the committee. So the MSBA has what they call a Facilities Assessment Subcommittee. This is a group that provides feedback at this phase of the project on the education plan and the design as it stands today. So we met with the MSBA and this subgroup on the 15th of this month. We being the district, AI3, Colliers, Mr. Small, and
Did they not unlock that door?
They were both unlocked.
I know one was locked when I got here, so that's why, that's probably Don Essen calling.
Some students wanted part of our committee.
Oh, okay.
Each group that goes in front of this subcommittee is given a 20-minute time limit to present a slideshow to go over the educational vision and the design. And we did that, and I just wanted to note that both the education plan and the design were very well received by the committee. A lot of compliments, and I think it's important just to let the committee know that happened, and it was very well done and well received.
Great. Thank you. Anybody have any questions of John on that?
There's a lot of compliments. Yeah.
Was it?
Yeah.
That's nice.
Public Relations Subcommittee.
It was Mr. Essen and a student. I couldn't convince a student to come.
So this agenda item is something that we had, I believe, wanted to discuss. This came out of the working group, and Mr. Galvin, you're nodding. Do you want to take it from here? Or?
Sure, yeah. Yeah, hang on, John. So if you recall, 2 meetings ago, I was concerned over the lack of public relations, in my opinion, and I had asked for permission to reach out to a outside marketing firm. Since then, Colliers has stepped up and has come forth with a marketing public relations, and I thought, since I had volunteered myself and volunteered Mr. Frost at that time 2 meetings ago, that maybe it might be a good idea to create a public relations subcommittee so that we could work closer with Colliers to get the marketing going. You've probably all seen Mr. Small has been the author of many postings on social media, and that's just a start. I'm assuming that's being driven through Colliers, and that's where
Correct.
you're getting that information from. But I just thought it would be a good idea for us to make it a subcommittee, and obviously I volunteered to be on it, and like I said, volunteered Mr. Frost to be on it. Anybody else that would like to join us, I would think, but I wanted to bring it forth to the full committee for discussion.
Thanks, Sean.
So, without any other discussion, one of the benefits of having Mr. Galvin with us is his extensive audiovisual knowledge and being able to film. Working in conjunction with the folks at Collier's so that we can have a multitude of videos that can show the conditions and really take people through a narrative of what the middle school is today, and then perhaps as we continue, what we envision it for tomorrow. It's just a tremendous resource, and Brandon volunteered and John volunteered, to spearhead that. It would be done in conjunction with Collier's, and Collier's would handle the placement of the social media, et cetera, as they're doing now. And I just think it would just be a wonderful opportunity for us. I wanted to bring it to the whole committee so that everyone has the opportunity to either join them within the endeavor, and everyone's okay with it. So, any questions, consensus, or thoughts? Ms. Donovan.
Leila Donovan, 81
Oh, hold on, we gotta get you the microphone.
Leila Donovan, 81 Old Mansion Lane. There's a group of parents that have been trying to get together to do some of that work. So I'll speak for everyone to say we're really happy to hear that there's a professional to handle that, and I can share that information with the parents if you want us involved in doing that. So keep me posted.
Yeah, and the way, and we've tried to make sure that we're in proper conjunction with the law and what we're allowed to do and what you folks as parents are allowed to do. And I believe we can offer you a liaison to Collier's, to our project manager, so that if there's information that you need about our project, it can be provided to you. I mean, we want to give you folks as much support as possible, and that goes for anybody. And I'm just going to say it blanket, whether you're for the project, against the project, don't care about the project, live, dream, sleep, and eat the project. We want to be there for you to give you as much information that you want. So I'm sure in the very near future, we're going to be coming out with a way for you to be able to contact those folks. Probably be initially through email, John? Be the easiest?
That'd be fine, yeah. I do need to clarify that, and we had discussed this a couple of meetings ago, that there are regulations as a paid consultant. We can't go out and advocate. We, being a consultant, can't go out and advocate for the project. We can offer content, factual information about the project to assist the public in getting the word out, but we cannot go out and say, vote yes. We absolutely cannot do that. But certainly available to help with the facts of the project and help that get distributed. So.
Also, the little chat box, if you go to the WMS project, if you go to that chat box, it sends John a message.
That's correct.
Yeah, with the questions. So that's a nice, quick, easy way to get in touch with him. He's probably muttering under his breath at me, but that's okay. Oh, I'm sorry, Chris?
Are you looking for volunteers for the subcommittee, or just people going to volunteer as they can?
You want to volunteer, Chris?
Yes, I do.
Absolutely.
Nice.
Welcome aboard.
Thank you.
I'm sure you guys will get in touch with each other and film away, so to speak. Any other questions about this subcommittee? All right, moving on.
Next on the agenda is the construction delivery methods presentation that I have for you. It's a brief presentation. This committee is going to have to make a decision on the construction delivery method, and there are two options. You see up on the presentation screen here. We have the general contractor option. That's the traditional design, bid, build approach, and that's what Mass General Law locates in Chapter 149. The alternative is the construction manager at risk delivery method. That's been approved by Massachusetts for public projects since 2004. That's Chapter 149A of Mass General Law, and that is applicable for a project like this, with it being over $5 million. The overview I have for the general contractor approach is traditional, it's familiar. You have a 100% design bid package that you put out for bid, and you select the low bidder. It's really that simple. Of course, the low bidder must be a qualified low bidder. It does require a pre-qualification process of general contractors and the major subcontractors, and the subcontractors become a part of the general contractors team. Again, that's based on a lump sum amount at the completion of the bidding process. We have advantages to that. It's a familiar process, it's the traditional route. It's simpler to manage, fully defined scope of project for construction, and you get the lowest price. You take the lowest bid. That's how it works. It's a linear process. It does have limited input from a construction team during the design phase. And pre-qualification trade, subcontractors are only done on those that are mandated by law. Construction manager at risk. This is when you procure the services of a construction manager during the design phase. In our case, that would be in design development, and they'd be acting as a consultant on the project during the design, and they'd be working with us throughout construction. The CM firm is based on qualifications. It's not just taking a hard bid. There's an interview process. They submit price and non-price proposals. So you're picking a consultant that you want to work with, that you feel you have that has the qualifications and is the right fit for the project, as opposed to just taking a hard bid. Mass General Law requirement for pre-qualification of subcontractors still applies. The CM becomes the general contractor once the project goes into construction, and you have the ability for the construction to start prior to the full completion of the design. You could issue what we call early packages for things like steel, elevators, materials with long lead items. Those could go out and be ordered ahead of the construction process, so it could help with the schedule there. The CM would lead the pre-qual process and the bidding process. It does require us to submit a letter to the Office of the Inspector General to get their approval. Major advantages of the CM at risk. Selection of builder based, as I said, on qualifications, not just taking the low bid. The builder is part of the design team during design, and then they become the contractor in construction. You do have the ability to impact the schedule in a good way by fast tracking, as we said, and complex phasing and logistics can be improved with the sophisticated builder having input in the early design phase. So disadvantages, I think we all know at this point because we saw the construction cost estimates a few weeks ago. It's more expensive than the GC approach. There's no guarantees. It's not a bulletproof approach. Problems can still happen, even with a construction manager at risk on board. It's more complicated as a process. There's more people involved, more to keep track of. So those are the downsides. We do like to refer to a report that the MSBA did. This is a few years ago now, so it's a little old, but it's still relevant, of core projects under the MSBA's program, ranging from $5 to $104 million, and between the dates of 08 and 14. They found that after looking at 71 new construction projects in schematic design, the construction budget for projects using construction under risk method were estimated at about $23 per square foot higher than projects doing the traditional design bid method. And then by the time the guaranteed maximum price bid package was out, that's what comes out towards the end of the design phase, $35 to $38 per square foot higher than those using the design bid build. So again, it does come at a premium. Yes?
Is that 2016 prices?
Yeah, so you'd have to extrapolate the data from there, but it would be consistent if you extrapolate with escalation. Final audit of these projects. Let's see, final audit projects using the CM method of risk were about $33 to $38 higher than projects using design bid build. 12 of the 16 projects utilizing design bid build were lower at final cost than the construction budget. Compare that to 3 out of 10 projects using CM at risk. that had a lower final cost. So the data points to the fact, again, that CM at risk tends to be more expensive. And then when we look at change orders, essentially what this says is there's no difference in percentage of change orders related to design issues during construction. Whether you go design, bid, build, or whether you go CM at risk, the change orders are still between 0 and 2%, so no difference there. So here's the kind of summary here. Some projects are sufficiently simple that the initial cost savings with design, bid, build outweigh the value added through the construction manager at risk. So what this finding is that the CM at risk is most appropriate for complex, challenging phased projects where there's a lot of complicated logistics, aggressive schedules, and design, bid, build, the traditional construction delivery method, is more appropriate for a more simple construction process. Say, a ground-up building in an open site where you're building a new building. When it's done, you knock down the old one. That's where design, bid, build is more appropriate, more cost-effective. So that is the conclusion of the presentation. We're not asking for any decisions from the committee this evening. It's something that we wanted to just start talking to you about. However, as early as next month, it might be appropriate for the committee to make a decision on whether you want to go with CMR versus design, bid, build. You'll recall that there was a $5 million add on the cost estimate from PM&C designer's cost estimate for construction manager risk for this project. So,
Mr. Hassan.
I just have one question. Who would be, if we went with the design build, would they also own the commissioning?
No.
Good.
No. MSBA provides a commissioning agent.
Okay.
They'd be under contract with the MSBA.
Any further questions? So, looks like we have some homework to do over the next few weeks.
Indeed.
Before we get to designer update, there were the meeting minutes sent out in the packet. I don't know if everyone's had a chance to review them. They were omitted from the agenda. We can simply pass over those and do that next time, as far as that goes.
They're not on the agenda yet.
So, you can reasonably expect we should have had that on there. So, we'll vote those next meeting. Designer update. Troy plugs in his laptop, the dual. Julie, you're definitely going to need the microphone.
I love a microphone. I don't even talk as loud.
Mr. Bates, did you have something to add?
Quickly, did we skip the meeting minutes approval?
Yes.
Because it's not on the agenda.
Correct. Ready to roll. And give this to Julie.
So starting with the project schedule overview, just a quick slide. We've now transitioned into schematic design from the preferred schematic report phase. In terms of the designer schedule, we've continued with the August 31st submission date on our end, just to keep our consultants and our internal team on track, but of course that can be adjusted with the determination of the vote schedule. But from our end, we are continuing with the original schedule. A lot of these items that are involved in schematic design are pending or have begun to get underway. We are early in the process, and so we're in the planning for schematic design phase. We did come off of programming meetings with staff in the month of March, so we met with many of the teachers at the middle school just to familiarize them with the design concept and then to also get some feedback on items that they would need as a part of their curriculum and their spaces. John gave his presentation on intro to project delivery methods. We have a similar presentation, intro to net zero energy and sustainable design, with the intent being that we just like to provide some information related to those subjects, and looking for the committee to maybe at the next meeting establish some energy goals that we can have as we work through schematic design to keep that in mind and on track to achieving those energy goals.
So, if you guys, many of you guys might recall, nearly 20 years ago, this high school, Whitman Regional High School, was at the forefront of green design sustainability. As part of the pilot program for Massachusetts Technology Collaborative, this was one of, I believe it was 5 projects that brought green design to Massachusetts. And so and you also may recall that this school was the highest performer out of that peer group. And so at the time, this was a progressive green school. Evolution occurs, right? Codes change and increase in requirements of efficiency, and the process evolves. And so although this is still an incredibly efficient building and sustainable building, the evolution has been drastic. The evolution in 20 years is incredible. So we're going to talk about today net zero energy efficiency, the stretch code, and also some of the incentives that go along with it. As part of the information and concepts that we'll be talking about in future discussions, we'll be talking about social emotional learning. We'll be talking about the mental and physical health and how a building can help that experience. And what we experience in the built environment is incredibly important in how that influences our positive mental, social, emotional wellness. And so this is part of it. Green design, sustainable design, energy efficiency is part of that topic, but we're going to focus today on sustainability and net zero energy. I'm going to pass it over to Julie.
We just wanted to point out that when you go to the Mass Save website, which is a utility partnership for incentives, you find a case study, and it's Whitman Regional High School, and so you guys have already sort of cemented yourselves as progressive in terms of...
Norway is as far as they've come to tour this building.
Wow.
So,
yeah.
Pretty cool.
Yeah, so you guys have some big shoes to continue to fill. And so with that, we have a content-heavy presentation. We had shared it last week. Not looking to read all of the information today, but give a brief overview. If anyone has any questions, we can get more into the content after. But just jumping right in, the energy goals and how to achieve them. The state has committed to net zero emissions by 2050, and energy efficient buildings, constructing them, plays a big role in that. And so some of the strategies involved in creating more energy efficient buildings includes eliminating fossil fuels. And this would be eliminating the burning of fossil fuels that contribute to climate change. Additionally, reducing demand for energy use within our buildings. So trying not to require as much heating or as much cooling by constructing a really energy efficient building envelope, for example, are strategies that can also contribute to that reduced energy use. And then the integration of renewable energy on site is a proven example of using a cleaner solution to generating energy, and that can be in the form of solar, wind, or geothermal. And then more at the local level, there are stretch code updates happening this summer. Stretch code communities have committed to constructing with a higher efficiency than the base building code. And so some of the updates that are a part of that include new limits on energy use. And so that would be really focusing on reducing the demand for buildings. Additionally, there are new requirements for exterior envelopes that are tighter less thermal bridging, so the opportunity for kind of a drafty envelope, really tightening up that exterior. And those are strategies that we incorporate into our buildings for years, no matter the stringency of the code. Just good practice to have continuous insulation in your building exterior and make that as tight as possible. And then what really starts to impact some of these stretch code communities is the idea of being net zero ready or even going fully net zero. And so the stretch code does require, in its latest updates this summer, that any building 5 stories or less be net zero ready at a minimum. And so where that stacks up against the rest of the country, I mean, fortunately we live in a state that is very energy efficient and a leader in energy efficiency, so it's ranked number 2 on the US scorecard of energy efficiency. And not only is it the legislation that sort of contributed to that, it's communities like Whitman that have signed on to the stretch code. So Whitman committed to the stretch code in 2016. So you have committed already to building more energy efficiently and above the base building energy code. And so, yes?
Just a quick question. Procurement of 2,400 megawatts of wind energy by 2027.
That's statewide.
So it's a statewide goal?
That's right, yeah. Well, they're not looking for any particular project to commit to that generation of wind energy, but it's a goal of the statewide.
Okay. Because it is windy down there.
Yeah. And so a few acronyms that we might reference a lot in future conversations about net zero energy are TEDI, which is thermal energy demand intensity. And that's really this thought of going back again to demand. So how much heating is required as a result of the envelope losing energy, for example. And so those going hand in hand. The EUI, energy use intensity, is the amount of consumption of energy that a building is using throughout the year, and that's a factor of its building size and frequency of use. And then the balance of that energy used with how much energy is produced on site. So when you have an equal amount of energy produced on site versus the energy that's used by the building annually, that's considered net zero energy. We did want to provide a built example of net zero energy just to show that it's not that scary. It's possible, as you guys know, with Whitman-Hanson Regional High School, that green strategies are possible. We're sharing the Hosmer Elementary School today. That was a project constructed or completed construction last year that AI3 was the architect for. And what is relevant with Hosmer is that it's very similar size to what the new Whitman Middle School would be. On some of those strategies, we mentioned the continuous insulation at the exterior, having renewable energy sources on site. So Hosmer happened to be entirely solar. There were panels on the roof as well as on canopies around the site. And paying attention to occupant use. So including sensors that could turn lights off if no one was there, even zoning the building to turn parts of the building off if it's not being used as an added energy savings and reduction in demand. And we would point out too, just incorporating some of these strategies that are good design. For this case, reduce the building demand by 43.4% before even accounting for renewable energy. So some of the things that Troy and I have talked about in the process so far, like paying attention to the orientation of the academic wing, that in itself plays a big role in energy consumption and balancing heat gain, for example. And in the case of Watertown, the average of their schools in terms of its energy use intensity annually was 70. The Hosmer project was actually coupled with a second elementary school. They were bid as one construction package, and both schools achieved EUIs of the low 20s as compared to 70. So it is a proven, it does have a proven impact on the town overall and the energy usage for the town, the demand on the town. And of course that has environmental benefits, but it also has educational benefits and health benefits for the students. And of course, it would have cost benefits for the town and the district. The lower amount of demand on energy, for example, would be a lower utility cost.
Can I just, so reading this, the Watertown average was 70 BTUs and Mass average was 65.
Yes, for
So Mass
the
average was better than Watertown?
No, so the lower, you want the lower EUI as possible. And so that would indicate that the energy use was lower than the average. That makes sense.
So the building was less efficient than the average Massachusetts building.
Okay, that's what I thought. Okay.
The existing.
The existing building.
It was less.
The new buildings were much more efficient.
Oh, so where is your new building on this chart?
Where-
The yellow or gold
Oh,
to
okay.
the right.
Okay.
And so it would be a helpful metric for us down the line if we knew what the Whitman buildings, for example, all the school buildings, the current energy use intensity of those, and we would, down the line work with an energy consultant and modeler and understand kind of the direction of the building and where that stacks up against the existing buildings. That would be a useful analysis that we'll do in the process. Some of those methods, Troy mentioned how much the efficacy of solar has improved in the past 20 years. You could have the same amount of solar on a building as you did 20 years ago, and it would be 3 times as effective. It would also be a third of the cost. And so the technology has greatly improved, and it's more affordable today.
When you do the solar panels, are you doing microinverters or do you use one main inverter? To me, just thinking, panel goes out and you have everything, affected. Where a micro, it's just the one panel.
Oh, sure. Yes, yeah. It's not a series or parallel circuit, series circuit. Where if one goes out, that it becomes unusable. It would be on a decentralized basis.
Thanks.
And some of those, it's not just solar, for example, that you could use. You could also do geothermal or wind. We haven't really found wind to be as attractive because of the scale of the turbines and the noise that they make.
It was 60 degrees out Sunday. I was in a winter coat with a heater, battery pack heater, and still cold.
Yeah.
There's that much wind down there.
So it could be, it's definitely possible. What
Always
else?
gonna want
What
those
it
big,
also?
always gonna turn the turbine.
Small one.
Yeah, there you go. We have done more recently, we've done geothermal as well. We've coupled air source, so the solar with air source and geothermal. So you're generating electricity in both ways, and we're showing those systems here diagrammatically. So you can combine them. And of course, that reducing demand and the use of the building is really a contributor to the overall energy use, and occupant behavior and all of those aspects are also outside of the building's control. And then comparing some of those systems, so the existing middle school uses unit ventilators. These are code compliant systems for heating, but they do require the fossil fuel use. They've become less popular with maintenance teams over the years, just given their inefficiency and then the need to repair parts quite frequently. VAV systems, variable air volume, are the systems that have the large ductwork and they're moving air around. These also require fossil fuels. And then the VRF, variable refrigerant flow systems, are all electric systems, and those can be either air source or ground source. So that's where geothermal or the solar power comes into play. This chart is just comparing the life cycle payback for HVAC systems. So what's important to stress here is that this is just a sample project of about 170,000 square feet. This isn't intended to reflect the new Whitman Middle School, but it would be an analysis that we would do with our mechanical engineer when we have some, just further down the line, more of an understanding of what the building committee's energy goals would be that we're trying to achieve. And at least in this chart, we're seeing that the life cycle cost return, the highest return would be with the VRF system that utilizes air source if you're looking for an all-electric system. And then Troy is actually going to just fill everybody in on the latest utility incentives.
So in addition to the operating costs, making sure that we fine tune that and provide the lowest operating cost, the highest efficiency system possible. There are programs that on every project that are pursued for additional reimbursement or rebates from the utility company through Mass Save. I'm sure everybody's familiar with Mass Save. It's a pretty well-known product and company incentive program. So this particular project, if the committee does decide to proceed with a net zero energy building, net zero ready building, it would be through their Path 1 ZNE, Deep Energy Savings program. And so the baseline for that program, and part of the requirements is to engage them early. So in schematic design. And so we have done that. We've engaged NGRID and started that process, started the communication. And so with the discussions, and ultimately the district will sign a memorandum of understanding with the utility company, talking about the requirements for the district's responsibility, requirements for the utility company's responsibility through the process for rebates. And so this building would qualify for all of the requirements necessary to create and establish that memorandum of understanding. And a couple of items to note specifically. The target must be 25 EUI or less. And as you can see from the Hosmer example that Julie just went through, that's certainly achievable with this building. The ZNE reimbursement is, you can see on the right-hand side in the green box under construction incentive money per square foot. They do it by a square foot basis if you're achieving 25 or less for an EUI. And that's $2 a square foot. So that comes out to about $278,000 at the end of construction as a rebate to the district for proceeding with Path 1 with NGRID. Now there's a second component to that, which is part of the post-occupancy evaluation. Now the post-occupancy evaluation typically happens 10 to 12 months after the substantial completion of the project. The information based on the mechanical system operation, based on the occupancy of the building and effective EUI, that results in additional reimbursement if you hit the targets, and then it's a sliding scale relative to that. And it's $1.50, additionally $1.50 per square foot, so that's another $210,000 approximately that the district could receive as a post-occupancy rebate based on the evaluation. And NGRID does that evaluation with a third party as well. There's a certification incentive of $3,000 once the building has been officially certified as a zero net energy building. So something that we'll be working with NGRID through the process, and it's certainly a pretty sizable reimbursement rebate as part of the process. Now, the next slide is another program which is through the Department of Environmental Resources, DOER, and it's a solar incentive program. So if the district does decide to include solar, whether it's on the roof or parking lot PVs, then we would go into further discussions on the eligibility of this particular opportunity related to the size of the renewable energy system, the utility company's specific requirements for and rebate requirements, as well as looking at the location, meaning project location and other items. So something that we can get into a little bit deeper if the district decides to take this path.
Quick question. How does the MSBA determine, because if we're energy efficient, don't they also add points on the reimbursement?
So as part of the, so as part of the process, getting to, as we work through the design process with the MSBA, we'll also have another component which the project will be LEED certified. And so as part of being LEED certified, the energy efficiency component related to the point system in LEED, then that over a certain threshold gets a 2% additional reimbursement. And we've accounted for that in the process in the scorecard that was submitted as part of the preferred schematic report, and anticipated through the process that we'll get LEED certified, which in turn gets the district the 2 additional reimbursement points.
Was that part of the estimates that you were giving us as well? It was.
Part of,
It was already accounted for.
Yeah, it's part of the reimbursement. Yep, MSBA reimbursement.
So that spread. So to
Correct.
speak.
And then just finally, how do all of these components come together? So you would have your renewable energy sources most likely on the roof or somewhere around the site, and the energy from that would be sent to the solar transformer, where it would then be distributed to the energy battery storage and to the grid, where then from the grid it would be sent to the building transformer and back to the building. So we just wanted to make it clear that the energy that's being produced on site is not directly going back into powering the building. It still needs to be sent to the grid, where it's then redistributed back to the building. And similarly with the energy storage system or the battery system, it's not a replacement for a generator on site.
Does that eliminate the distribution charges on the electric bill?
It's a great question for the utility company.
However, because what the buy-in for doing the renewables on site, even though the building isn't directly receiving the power from that, it would be the incentive programs through the utility companies and the Department of Energy Resources that really promotes or influences a community into buying into that.
So I have a solar panel on my roof, and basically any energy that I generate slows down the invoice that I get from National Grid. So during the busy times, I've actually had months where they've owed me money because I've generated more than I've used. So are you saying that's not the case? There isn't net metering in this system?
That would be the case for the building project. The power itself, though, just doesn't directly go.
No,
from,
right. It
so
goes
you
into
would still receive.
but my meter spins backwards instead of forwards.
Yes, you would still have reduced.
So it will reduce
energy
the cost of the electric.
Right.
But like, for instance, in my system at home, I can see what I've consumed of my own power as opposed to what goes back to the grid or what I'm importing. It's all right in my cell phone too, who'd thunk? So,
Yes,
I mean, but this doesn't work the same way. We would not consume any power we generate. We have to send it back, and then they have to send it back to us.
Right, and then there's a reimbursement on your.
Okay, can we find out if they are charging us for sending it to them, and if we're paying for it to come back to us? Is it, the distribution charges, etc. I'm just I'm very curious as.
Yes, we can find that out. And when we know better the building committee's energy goals, we would also engage a consultant, solar consultant, who specializes in all of that as well.
On efficiency, we don't want to pay for it.
Fred, do you lease your solar panels?
No,
or do you want
I wrote a check. I own it.
don't pay for.
Right, but that's residential. I know when they consider the size of this, if they call it commercial, and there are different rules and regulations on it, so.
Right, and those are decisions that will also have to be made by the committee down the line if you're buying your solar panels outright, for example, if you're leasing them through a power purchasing agreement, and those are all topics we would certainly get into. We also just included a slide that had some of those glossary of terms that you hear about frequently. And then lastly, upcoming events. We believe the next community forum is scheduled for April 13th, which we anticipate covering a lot of the same or similar content. We would introduce the community to some of these energy incentives. And then, of course, the new website that John has been working on looks great.
As far as the public wants to know, it's www.wmsproject.org. Little plug for that, so feel free to ask the chat box a question.
Only got one question so far.
Is that mine?
No.
Is it? Oh, okay.
Okay,
So
two.
And we made a new QR code that takes you right to the project website.
$35 a month.
For you, free.
I just did my taxes and I saw it.
That is everything from our end.
Does anyone have any questions?
I do.
Ms. Lamatina?
What are we factoring in presently for cost for this? Because obviously some of the systems are different costs. How much have you factored in? Like, where are you?
Sure. So with the latest cost estimates for the new construction, we did estimate for a variable refrigerant flow system that's air source, so the VRF system. And then we're carrying solar or renewable energy as an add alternate, so that's assuming you were at least going for net zero ready, and then you have the alternate of actually going fully net zero.
Okay. What was that ad alt amount again?
That I don't know off the top of my head.
If I recall correctly, it was about 3.1 million. But we'd have to actually do, depending on the consumption of the building, we'd have to do the actual calculation on the wattage and the size of the system, and then update that number. That was based on Hosmer and the size of the building. Guesstimate work there.
Which is a good point where if the building is being anticipated for a lot of community use, that contributes to an increase in its EUI, its energy use intensity. And so as we further the process as well, we'll have to really narrow down how the community anticipates using the building so that we can best plan for balancing that demand.
Any other questions?
I would just say too, Mr. Lamatina, if you or the committee would like to see sort of the breakdown of what we anticipated within that number, we can certainly provide that too, just so there's some backup and some estimated information there. There's logic in the number, but it would still need to get recalculated based on the requirement of consumption.
Could you distribute that to everyone?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Within the packet this week were account and invoice approvals that need to be done. Everyone's had an opportunity to look at those. I would entertain a motion to approve those as presented.
Make that motion.
I just have one more question.
Oh, I'm sorry.
To this topic. So we have to be net zero ready by 2050? Is that what?
You would have to commit to an energy goal of either net zero or net zero ready before July 2020
This year.
This year.
to comply with the stretch code updates.
Okay, so that 3.1 million really isn't an ad alt then. We have to do it.
You don't have to have solar panels.
Yeah, the amount is for the renewable energy source, but you would have to account for being net zero ready, you would have to implement the conduits and provide the roof space and plan it as if net zero could be, or the panels, for example, could be applied after the fact.
And that is included in the pricing that you gave us to be net zero already, correct?
With an asterisk of constantly changing electrical scope. So.
sorry, it might be too early in this phase, but have we evaluated the current electric bills for the middle school to determine what the cost over a 5 or 10 year period has been? To be able to sort of give an idea on the 3.1 million it's going to cost to add the panels? I don't know.
We have not, but that would be a helpful start. We could engage with our mechanical engineer and really start the process of evaluating some of those systems and comparing them. I was curious if Whitman has an energy manager or anybody who, that would be.
For the school district.
We'll continue to work with.
Yeah, that's scary.
I know we do have a contract that, as far as purchasing our energy for a kilowatt hour basis that's lower than market, then I don't know where we stand in the renewal on that.
2025, I think. December 2024, January 2025.
Okay. What are we paying on it? Last I thought.
Substantially lower than market rates.
Yeah, I thought it was around 12 or
Something
13,
like that,
something like that. So it's it's been a good rate. I'm sure we could pull up or have access to the electric bills for both all that, or National Grid could provide them for us.
Yes.
How many years would you like?
I think, I'm not sure what the typical backlog is, maybe 3 to 5 years.
Okay.
Is
And
probably standard.
would that be part of? I know you folks will be talking with those folks. It was Troy. Did you mention that you'll be reaching out for the rebates, et cetera? You work in conjunction with National Grid?
We already have. Yeah,
Okay.
we've already reached out. Julie reached out last month, and we'll continue the conversation with the folks there. There will be an energy charrette. I don't know if you want to mention the energy charrette that we'll need to have in the next month or so.
Sure, yes. Once, with the establishment of your energy goals, we'll also be meeting with the group of energy professionals. So it would include representatives from National Grid, our mechanical engineer, representatives from your town. So Tim, if you're the energy savant, we would need you. And then, so everybody getting in a room together and then establishing where we are in the process. What can we do as we're designing to help contribute and reach the energy goals that have been established? And so starting to accumulate a lot of that information on electric bills and those types of documents would come into play down the line. So today we just wanted to provide an introduction, and it's great that everyone's sort of starting to get.
Can you request those bills from them?
From National Grid?
Yeah, past 60 months, say. That'll give you 5 years.
True,
And
yes,
perhaps
yeah.
put together a little pie chart and analysis.
We do usually go through the district. It might be, yeah.
Okay. So,
Okay, yeah.
Mr. Stanbrook, to add on to the 10 million things that you're doing.
Right.
We'll get those from there.
Those bills will be totally miscued though. I mean, you're talking about an old antiquated building compared to a brand new facility.
It's gonna be a lot higher.
They won't give you a whole lot of data, that valuable data.
I think it's.
Yeah, but I think it's imperative we do that because in order to see the actual potential savings, instead of spending the X amount of money on electricity, we're going to obviously invest that money into the PV system to support the new site.
What was your cost? So, and Mr. Lamartine did have one other thing.
Just only because I really don't know anything about the VRF systems. There's no replacement value to those at any point. What's their life cycle?
The length, yes. So one of the benefits of using the VRF system is that it's a decentralized system. So compared to the VAV system, it's centralized, right? It has sort of this beating heart that when that goes down, now the whole system's gone down. So one of the benefits of the VRF system is that given its decentralized nature, each classroom, for example, would have these 2 cassettes that we call them. So if one cassette isn't working, you still have the rest of the school continuing to operate as normal, and you can diagnose that one cassette and replace it. So the cost in terms of maintenance is a lot more easier for the facilities team to sort of to navigate the operations of those. Did that answer your question?
Yeah. Yep. Thank you.
We also found that the VAV system requires a lot more floor-to-floor height because you're fitting all those deep ducts in. And so in previous projects, we have found savings in the reduction of the floor-to-floor, and you're reducing the exterior envelope as a result, so it sort of compounds and savings.
I'm good.
Anybody else? Okay. Going back to account invoice approvals. Those were distributed in the packets this week. I would entertain a motion to approve as presented.
So moved.
Second.
Beth with the first, Randy with the second, John? Okay, any discussion? All in favor? Roll call, I'm sorry. Mr. Essen?
Yes.
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 Yes?
Yes.
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 Yes. Yes.
Chris?
Yes.
Unanimous. Next meeting date. Mr. Bates? What is your feeling? You folks meet on the 13th?
11th.
Or the 11th? Okay, so the 11th, so that'd be what, the 18th would be that following Tuesday?
That's our school break.
Let's do it with the vacation week.
That's school vacation.
Is it 25th? Tuesday, April 25th?
Tuesday, April 25th?
Sure. Yes.
Consensus? Okay. All right, so Tuesday, April 25th. Entertain a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, moving second. Roll call. Don?
Yes.
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 Yes?
Yes.
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 Yes. Yes.
Chris?
Yes.
Okay, thank you all. Appreciate everything.
So,